We are recording the interview of Rodney Reinertson. This interview is being conducted by Katie Bradshaw from the Wright State University Veteran Voices Project. Also in attendance are Carrie Aldridge, Mike Nelson, and Mary Nelson. This interview is being recorded at Rodney's home in Alden, Iowa. It is 4:22 p.m. on November 24th, 2019. Hello, Rodney. How are you doing?
Okay.
Thank you for joining us today. Would you like to tell us about when and where you were born?
Yes, I was born in El Paso, Texas, when my dad had gotten drafted into the Army. So I was born on the Fort Bliss in 1983.
Was your father deployed at the time or
No,
home?
he was stationed in Fort Bliss, Texas, not deployed.
Okay. And were you the first child for your parents?
Yes, I was the first child of total of 3.
Okay. And so the second and third child, were those brothers or sisters?
I had one sister and then one brother.
How far into your childhood were you still living within like military bases?
We had left the military base at a pretty young age. I really didn't remember the military base itself because it was a real young age.
How many years did your father serve?
I think he served 3 years.
So when your father got out of the military, where did you move?
First to Witten, Iowa, and then from Witten we moved to Eldora.
And then how long did you live in Eldora?
Pretty much all my childhood was mostly in Eldora.
When you were a child, what hobbies did you enjoy?
Horseback riding and bike riding, running.
Were you in any sports, organized sports?
No, I had to, they wanted me to help on the farm, so when I asked about going out for track, Dad told me to grab 2 buckets of feed and run out there and feed the horses, or feed the cattle.
That's farm life, right?
So it was pretty much raised on farm and doing farm activities.
What did your family raise on their farm?
We raised cattle at that time.
What was the size of your family farm?
It was 140 acres. It's small comparison to most places today, but
At the time, that must have been a nice sized
Yeah.
farm. Good. So growing up, did you aspire to become a farmer yourself?
no. I enjoyed working with the horses and stuff like that, but I just really wasn't I worked the farm all the time, and my little brother didn't. And I got away from farming. My little brother's a farmer.
Oh, that's funny, isn't it? What was the reason he didn't have to work the farm?
He was the youngest, so he did more in the house and stuff like that, and he probably did more of the farm work once I left, but while I was there, my sister and my brother really didn't do anything on the farm.
Okay, so you were quite busy then
Yes.
helping your father. So at some point then, you decided to join the military out of high school, is that?
Yes.
How did you make that decision?
Well, Dad was kind of pushing the issue just a little bit because of military and thought it was good, and so my one girlfriend at the time, we was thinking of going Air Force, and then she was trying to get where we'd be stationed at the same place, and I really didn't want to go move that much into a relationship at the time. So then the Navy guy, he looked pretty cool. He had a beard and everything else, so I thought that was kind of cool. So I went in the Navy.
How old were you at this point?
I just turned 17 when I joined. I was 18 when I actually went in and had graduated, but it was like 17 years old, 17 and a half or something when I had actually signed up into the Navy.
How did your parents feel about that decision?
They were all for it. And
Your dad was a proud veteran, was proud
Yeah.
that his son wanted to serve?
yes,
That's good. Well, how did you feel leading up to leaving for basic training?
well, once it was excited and everything, but when it come to time to leave, goodbyes was very hard. And Carrie Aldrich was my next door neighbor, which was 5 years younger than me, so we was just like, she was like my little sister. We did a lot together, but when it come time to saying goodbye, I couldn't. So deep down, I knew I had feelings for her more than maybe just a little sister, but couldn't say that because 17 and 12 or 18 and 12 just don't work. So when I headed off to the military, I didn't even say goodbye. So Carrie felt deeply hurt because of not being, she got informed by Mom that I was gone.
Yeah, and with you guys having a close friendship, I'm sure that was a surprise for her.
Yes.
Yeah. So you go off to basic training, and was it what you expected it to be, or was it different than you expected it to be?
It was different than I expected it to be because the whole time before going in, I was training. And when I got into basic training, I thought it was supposed to be hard and it was super easy because I was already running 5 miles a day and bike riding 20 miles a day
That's a lot.
before I went in. So I was ready and prepared, and right before I went in, I took a bike ride to my grandma's house, which is 120 miles.
Wow.
And I told them, my cousin, or uncle I should say, that I'd be there in one day. And they all said, there's no way you can make 120 miles in one day on a bicycle. So I got up in the morning, jumped on my bicycle, headed to Postville, Iowa, which is 120 miles. And that afternoon, they had a thunderstorm warning come in, and so Mom called up and told him the route that I'd be traveling, that he might need to go find me because of the thunderstorm warnings in the area. And when he was walking out the door, I was walking up the sidewalk.
So how many hours later was that?
I did it in 10 hours.
10 straight hours of bike riding.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. I imagine you were exhausted.
Well, I was in good shape back then, so it was hot that day, so as long as I kept moving, it felt I had the breeze, so it was cooler than when I stopped. So I just pretty much ate my lunch while I was still riding and just kept going.
Wow. So you're in really good shape physically. How about the swimming challenges that are in the Navy basic training?
Dad had gotten, when he went into the military, he didn't know how to swim. So their idea to teach you to swim is throw you in the deep end of the pool and sink or swim. So he made sure that all of us kids went through swimming lessons. And at an early age, I had already been where I could be a lifeguard because of the classes I took in swimming. So I was a very good swimmer.
So you were fully prepared for basic training?
Yes.
Did you graduate? Sometimes they have like honors students that excel. I'm not sure if the Navy basic training does that.
No.
No. Okay.
They put me, I was physically fit, they decided to put me in charge of the fat boys. And I'd have to run with the fat boys every day to work them out. So when I took my qualification run, I ran with the fat boys first, and then they wanted to put that down as my time, and I said, no, I haven't run my run yet. And they said, you just got done running 2 miles, and you're not going to declare that time? And I said, no, I was running 2 miles helping them out. Now it's my turn. And then after running 2 miles, I run another 2 miles for myself for my time. But that was just how I did it. And when all the fat boys had qualified, I told them they got to eat dessert that day because they had all of them had made the time.
I imagine the instructors were very happy with you.
Yes.
And the guys.
Yeah. But I was hard on them. I mean, I wouldn't let them get no dessert or anything when they went through line while they was in training. So dessert was a reward versus kind of like working with the animals and stuff. You give a treat as a reward. You don't give a reward for bad behavior, you give a reward for good behavior. So it was what I was always taught, and so I just worked on what I was taught on the farm and working with the horses into my military life.
Good. Career-wise, did you get to choose what job you would have in the Navy?
Not really, because I went under they called it a 3x6, so you pretty much went in without a actual job. They chose me to be under the fireman side, which was working with firefighting equipment and welding. But if I'd went in under the regular 6-year program, I would have got the other schooling, and then when I got on the ship, then I would have been a higher rank instead of starting off all the way at the bottom.
So you ultimately were a firefighter who did welding as well?
Yes.
Okay. Where was that training?
Well, I didn't go through training.
You learned on the job?
On the job from the Navy.
Okay.
Pretty much right after basic training, I went straight to the ship. I didn't go to school.
That's interesting. I didn't know the Navy did that or offered that.
So it was pretty much hands-on training that I did.
Did you have good people to train you?
They pretty good, but I already knew most of it on my own. All I needed to be is directed where to go on things, and I already knew how to weld because I welded on the farm, so I learned a lot just putting my farm life merged it into the military.
And where were you assigned or stationed?
I was stationed on the USS Virginia, which was a nuclear-powered guided missile cruiser to start with. And one of the things through military life that I had a hard time with is enlisted versus an officer. An officer can do things and not get in trouble for it. We were having stuff not showed up missing on the ship. So all the enlisted were not allowed to leave the ship. Well, I was into photography at the time, so I took pictures of one of the officers putting military stuff in the trunk of his car. And like an idiot, I give both the negatives and the pictures to the CO. So I pretty much got blackballed. Yeah, we got released and weren't restrained to the ship no more, but I was blackballed through the rest of my Navy career, where I wasn't allowed to get no rank because I went and did something against the officer, which don't make sense, but that's the way life was.
That's really unfortunate. Wow. So Where was that station? Or
That was
location?
located in Norfolk, Virginia,
Okay.
on the naval base.
How long were you there?
3 years, and did a lot of training and different things. We was over for a little while over in, not Kuwait, but dealing with Gaddafi. And then we went to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, did some training. And then we also stopped off at the Virgin Islands, and so we got to do a lot of traveling with the Navy.
Yeah, you got to see some things outside of Iowa.
Yeah. Which, a farm guy going out and seeing all the different areas, you start to realize how big the world actually is, of things that you don't really even hear about when I was young in Iowa. I mean.
Right, right. So, of those things that you were learning about, what was the most surprising to you? Or something that stands out as you remember being surprised to learn?
That a lot of people would touch you. You could, just like different races and different type of people, we could all get along. I like Kuwait, I mean not Kuwait, but the Virgin Islands and other places, they're 90% other races and different colors. But they still treated you like a human being. And it got where you can, and through the military, you got different races, and you're working hand in hand. So, as a farmer, as a kid, we didn't have none of that back then. So that was something that really got me, where I was working hand in hand with other people, and some of my best friends are different colors. And people would always have this old saying back when I was a kid, which didn't mean nothing wrong by it, but it was offensive to other people. So the military taught me to, instead of using that terminology, you use a different terminology for it. And because, yeah, you don't want to say something that is offensive to other people.
Becoming socially aware.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, back in the Eldora, I mean, it was just a normal little saying. And it's wrong.
Right. I think that that's one of the strengths that the military has, is when somebody's coming from any place where there's predominantly just one people group, one race, they get to experience life and break down stereotypes and become better people because of it. So how did you decide to end your Navy time?
Well,
service?
I got put into the inactive reserves, well, the active reserves, I mean. And through that period in time when I was in the reserves, they didn't have a base near where I was at, so their idea of your weekend service was sitting around a table drinking coffee all day. And I was always such an active person that was driving me crazy. So I put in a request to go active duty Army, where I could be more outside than below deck, and do away with my Navy reserves.
How did your family feel about that?
I've never really, at that point in time, I really wasn't talking to my family. Because, I don't know, I just had hard feelings between my dad and myself at that point in time. And later on, through life, I find out that a lot of my dad and myself are too much alike. And my dad has been through a lot of things that he had kept held inside that nobody in the family knew about it. Which, with the PTSD and stuff like that, which I found out later in life about, that Dad had the PTSD also, just wasn't military PTSD, but one incident he told me about was he was supposed to, they were going to church, and he went in a different car because he normally had drove, and his little brother went into the other vehicle. Well, they got in an accident, his little brother died. And so my dad felt that that was against him because he wasn't driving that day. That he could have done something to avoid it from happening, which maybe, maybe not. You don't know. And then through different things that I've had in my life, like Navy Basic, one of the guys killed himself because he was being told he had to exit the military because he had a breathing disorder, and his family was a military family. So right from the get-go, I was starting to have PTSD problems through different things in the military, through death, and before even that, I had a friend got killed by his brother by accident with a .22 rifle climbing over a gate. So I started having, death was part of my life right from 14 years up. There were just things were taking place with death and everything, and then into my military career, and so some things were causing me problems with that part later on.
Yeah, I imagine that these were traumatic experiences that you were just stuffing at the time.
Yes, and at that time they didn't do like they do now, where you have some kind of counseling to deal with the stress. It was suck it up and move on.
Yeah. So you transitioned to the Navy, or I mean to the Army.
Yes.
Did you get to choose the job you were going to do in the Army then?
Yes. I went into the Army as a construction equipment mechanic, but the recruiters are looking to fill a slot. They don't tell you that at a certain part, your MOS that you're going in under is going to merge with several other MOSs, so you're going to be deadlocked and can't make rank. It'd be better if they would let people know what's going on, but they're trying to fill a slot. So when I went into the Army, I got deadlocked where I couldn't make rank. And with the MOSs that I had already, I took a lot of correspondence courses and different things, but I worked as a 52 Charlie, which is a generator mechanic. I worked as 44 Bravo, which is the welder, and then the construction equipment mechanic, and was good at what I did. I just was kept where I couldn't make rank. And like one job I did was, it was closer to the end of my military career, but we had inspection they do for it's a readiness inspection. How ready are you to, if you needed to be deployed, for your equipment and everything to be ready. And the one that was in charge of the generators, he was on vacation at the time. So they just told me to take care of it. So I worked on getting everything to ready and for the inspection. And when the inspector come through and did the inspection on everything, he gave me 100%. So I got a reward from my company for that. Well, then the inspector had told this other unit that was down the road from us that if they wanted to get a good grade, airborne unit, that they needed to get me over there to help them out on their equipment. And so when I went over to help them out on their generators and forklift equipment and everything, that when the inspectors showed up, they didn't even inspect nothing when they seen me. They just walked right on through and just automatically give 100% grade.
Because you had such a good reputation.
And so that CO gave me another reward for that, and he says, you must have really impacted the inspectors for them not even look. So.
That must have made you feel really good.
Oh yeah, it did.
And that was towards the end of your Army career?
Yes.
During your Army career, where all did you go, location-wise?
Well, I was stationed in Germany for a while, 3 years in Germany, which kind of liked to travel abroad while I was over there. I'd take vacation time and go to Austria. I'd go to the Netherlands and Switzerland and through that area. So I got to go up in the Swiss Alps and just everywhere, and it was a lot of fun doing that. Just learning the different signs that they have when you go into another country it's like one area you go, they don't have green, yellow, and red. They got green and red. And when the light starts flashing, on the 5th time it flashes, you better be stopped. Because the green light's flashing too, or the red light's flashing too for the other ones, and the instant it flashes the 5th time, they're stepping on the gas. So.
That's interesting. So you had to learn new driving rules.
Yeah, it was weird. So.
I imagine it was also weird being in a location where you could drive to another country almost faster than you could drive to another state in Iowa.
Yeah, all the countries there are small. And like the United States, we're huge. I mean, where it takes a week to go across the United States, you can go all the way across Europe in less time than go across the United States.
What was your favorite country that you visited in Europe?
I think Austria was one of my favorite countries. I liked the people, the terrain, the people were real polite, and most of them countries spoke English. My German landlord told me that I needed to speak German, and they told me they'd rather me speak English too.
Did you do some shopping? I know a lot of people shop in Europe.
Yes. And then, like, if you're going to make a big purchase or something, you could get fill out a paper to get it signed and not pay taxes for it. So, as being a U.S. citizen. So that was kind of nice in that sense.
Yeah, an extra perk.
Mm-hmm.
During your time in the Navy, what was a moment that was really maybe memorable or impactful to you?
Probably during in the Navy was over there in Cuba and that area. That was really impacted over there doing the training and everything over there, because a lot of stuff we had to do, we had to make our own parts.
How would you do that?
We have machinist mates and people that would run a lathe, and we just take a piece of metal, put it on the machine, and mill it down to make whatever part we had.
Wow. Had you done that before?
No.
So you were learning for the first time to make parts?
Yes. And so that was a lot of fun there in the Navy on that. And then the Army, a lot of impact that I had was during Desert Storm and Desert Shield. Started off Desert Shield and then went into Desert Storm. But the desert life was a big extreme in difference, from super hot during the day to cold at night, and you just, during the day you're sweating, at night you had to turn the heater on, and then you got the snakes that they had over there that are deadly, and the big old spiders and the scorpions. And
Where were you when you found out that you were going to be deployed for Desert Shield?
I was stationed in Fort Hood, Texas.
Okay, and then your unit got notified that you'd be going to which country? Were you in Kuwait or?
Well, Kuwait was where we was going into relief to protect them from Saddam Hussein, but most of the military forces was stationed in Saudi Arabia and that area. And so
You went to Saudi Arabia?
yes.
Now, as years went on, Saudi Arabia became a very built-up base with a swimming pool and cafeteria and all that. I imagine you were there in Tent City?
Well, we went to Tent City first, where you were supposed to get acclimated to the temperature change and drink tons and tons of water. So you was drinking tons of water, and then half the night you'd be up going to the restroom, because your body's not used to drinking that much water. And then once we got our orders of where we're going to be sent to, we get the trucks and we head out to our location. And we get to our location, it's dark out. So everybody pretty much that night just went to sleep where they could.
Meaning what, outside?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And a bunch of us went to sleep on the hood of the truck, or in the bed of the truck, or in the truck. And some of them went to sleep on the ground.
How did you protect your weapons with that kind of a situation?
You just keep them beside you. But to one morning, that first morning when we got to the area, we woke up and one of the guys fell asleep sitting alongside the deuce-and-a-half tire. Well, right beside him was one of them snakes that are supposed to be so deadly. They were always calling it the three-step snake when we was over there. They said it bites you, you take 3 steps and you're dead. And it was sitting there right beside one of our buddies. And so we ended up getting him notified about that snake was there, but you don't want to try to run because, but when so he's sitting there right beside the snake, and then we're taking open fire with the M16 to kill the snake right beside where this guy's sitting at. So when we opened fire with the M16, of course, everybody in the whole unit's going nuts, wondering what's going on, but...
Did you kill it?
Yeah, we killed the snake. But
And you didn't hit your buddy?
no. But it'd been nice to have some other way of doing it, but you don't know what to do at the time. You just got to react sometimes, and that's part of the military training is they teach you to react at a split-second notice and do what you got to do for whatever there is.
What was your job in Saudi Arabia then?
I got put down, they asked right before we went there for a volunteer for something. I didn't know what I was volunteering for. I said, well, I'll do it. I don't care. And they had took me and had me go through mail handling training. So my job, one of my jobs in Saudi Arabia was being the mail handler. So a lot of times I'd have to leave the compound alone. to go pick up the mail and whatever else the unit needed. And so one time when I was out picking up the mail, the truck was getting low on fuel, so I'd stop and get some fuel at a local gas station, which there, it would have been $30–40 to fill up this vehicle. In the United States, cost $5 over there.
Really?
It's that low of a price which was per the liter there, but still $5 filled up a diesel truck. Versus here, you ain't even close to that.
Was that because their cost of living is so different, or because it's so available it's almost free?
It's so available it's almost free there. But their fuel isn't 100% like American diesel fuel. Their fuel at their gas station for the diesel side is more like what the military call JP8 or something like that, like a jet fuel. It doesn't have the oils in it, so the diesel equipment was having a lot of troubles running over there because didn't have the lubricants in their diesel like the American diesel would have. And so I had started putting Dextron 3 into the fuel tank. And they started wondering why my truck wasn't having no troubles when everybody else was. And I told them what I was doing. So it became pretty much, they put the word out, and it became pretty much a standard that every time you filled up the truck, you put a quart of Dextron 3 in your fuel tank. Which helped all of the vehicles over there.
So
the older ones.
That would have had a big impact on the military.
Yes.
Every branch over there to find out this is how we can better run the vehicles here.
Yes, because the older vehicles, the newer ones don't require the lubricants for the injection pump and stuff like that. But the older vehicles, like the old Deuce and a Halfs, the old 5 tons, the Chevrolet Cut V and the Humvees even, needed to have a regular injection pump that needed to be lubricated on the internal part where it wasn't being lubricated with the jet fuel.
It's interesting that wasn't thought of, but I guess that's the point of your job then somebody who knows thinks of it.
Yeah. And like my CO, he said, well, you used to work third shop in your other job in Germany. And I says, yes. And he says, so they were buying parts off the market versus trying to get it through military channels, because the military channels at that time in that war was so slow. So it was cheaper to go buy an injection pump for a truck at the local auto parts store than to try to buy it through military channels. So when I would go get mail, the company was issued a credit card, and I'd take the company credit card and buy parts for the vehicles to get them fixed.
Out in Kuwait?
Yes.
Or Saudi Arabia?
Saudi Arabia. And a lot of the problems they were having over there is being supply channels were so poor, military was robbing from military. You parked a Deuce and a Half and didn't put a padlock on around the steering wheel because everything's got light keys. You'd come back out and your vehicle would be gone. Somebody would have stole your vehicle to get parts off it to fix their vehicles. So it was a big problem over in that war because the supply channels were so poor.
That's interesting. Did it improve during your time there, or that?
Yes, towards the end it got a lot better because the supply channels got better. But the first part of it, it was hard. And when people couldn't get something to get their equipment, their CEOs saying, I need my truck running, get it running. They were just doing whatever they could to make things happen. And with me having the added knowledge of the equipment from working third shop beforehand, helped our unit out a lot because we could just go purchase the parts on the economy and then I just put them on and get everything going. And then they'd have other guys working with me over there. And then through the one area, when we first place we went to, they built their bomb shelters. And a lot of them thought they just had put connexes up and throw some sandbags around the connexes. And me and another guy, we didn't feel comfortable with that, so we built our own bomb shelter. Well, one of the officers come down there to check everything from higher command and wanted us to all stand by our bomb shelters. So me and one guy standing by this little, got a couple little sandbags on top of the ground, and we're standing there by that. And so he decided he wanted to look at our bomb shelter. So I said, you got a low crawl? He said, I don't care. So he got down, low crawled into our bomb shelter, come back out, and he said, you got enough room for one more. He says, if the shit hits the fan, he says, I'm coming into your bomb shelter.
Did you dig into the ground?
Yes. And of course we hit rock, so we dug through rock.
With what?
Just a pickaxe and shovels. And we had to do our own bomb shelter on our time versus...
So you had to work your 12-hour shift or whatever.
Yeah, and then do our own bomb shelter. Because, and he says, why didn't you join your rest of your platoon? And I says, honestly, if a bomb hits, I don't think that's going to hold up. And he had to agree with me. So when we got to our next unit, second place we went to, we built our own one big enough for the whole platoon underground.
And where was that another location in Saudi?
Yes. And we dug in on that one, and which it became the regular place to get lunch because it was usually about 10 degrees cooler in that bomb shelter than it was outside.
So what was the inside parameters were about what?
Well, it was, we had a area for you to walk down that was about 1.5 to 2 foot wide. And then where we had dug it deeper, and then we made benches out of the soil where you could go in, and with you staggering, you could put your rucksack and all that when you went in, staggering across from each other, and was long enough for everybody. So it was about 1.5 to 2 foot in the middle. Then you had a foot on the bench and a foot on the other bench. So it was about 4 foot wide.
That sounds really impressive. How tall was it?
You could walk in.
Oh, you wouldn't even have to like crawl in.
No, this one we made you could walk in.
That's very impressive.
And then had the walls built where you had a flat wall on the end, so you got to go in and then turn to go in. So if there was an explosion, any way, bomb shrapnel couldn't get to where you were at. So it was pretty much all enclosed the way we had it set up, where you could just walk into the bomb shelter versus crawling. So
how long did it take you guys to dig that out?
Well, with all of us working together, we did it in less time it took to do the other ones that they did.
Would you say like months? Like
No.
I'm not.
We built the bomb shelter in a day.
Very impressive. Even chiseling through rock.
Yeah.
Very impressive.
But we had all of us working together as a team versus just two of us working, building our small one for us, we had a whole platoon working. So when one person got tired, another person would chip in and work at it.
That's really neat. During your time in Desert Storm, or Desert Shield, and then it became Desert Storm, so far you've been at 2 locations. Did you have another location?
Well, I traveled, did a lot of traveling on helping also with picking up helicopters that went down. So we'd had a wrecker that, because the unit I was in was an aviation unit. So we'd go in with a wrecker that had a fifth wheel on the back of the wrecker. And then we'd go in with air support. And if you could get the helicopter, you'd pick it up, put it on the trailer, and shag butt out. Or if you couldn't, then they'd blow the helicopter up if there's too much activity in the area.
Would the pilot have already been saved?
Yes, generally.
Okay.
Most of the time the pilot and all them was already, a crew has already went in and got them already.
Okay.
That'd be out of our unit was just dealing with the machine itself, so that other area would have been under the cabs done. Because most of the helicopters that was our support units were the 6th cab and 1st cab.
Okay. In your time there, did you experience, were you under fire often?
Not really. With our unit, we weren't under fire that much, other than the Scud missiles were following around us all the time. But luckily they're poor shots.
Okay.
We've had several Scuds that landed within less than a half-mile from our camp, but none actually hit our camp. They had one case where one of the Scud missiles hit a compound further in where I pick up the mail, and that day when I was picking up the mail, it had hit there, so they were trying to deal with the bodies and everything else when I was over there picking up the mail, so I helped retrieve bodies at that point in time because of you jump in and help. It doesn't matter if it's your unit or not, you jump in and help. And it doesn't matter whether it's Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. We're Americans, and we would jump in and help each other. So I jumped in and helped carry bodies out of the barracks that set up there that got hit by that one Scud that did make it through. The Patriot units did an excellent job of shooting down most of them. Just one got through and on that area and actually made connection with some.
How many casualties were from that?
I don't know for sure. I think it was 150 to 200 casualties.
That's a lot. I imagine that experience had a significant impact on you.
Yes, it did. And then also one other time we went out to retrieve a helicopter, and then our helicopter, I switched roles and was in the helicopter, and that time our helicopter went down.
Would you like to share details of that? That sounds very scary.
The sandy environment did a lot of wear and tear on the helicopter blades. And what happened on that one was the helicopter blades themselves split in half. So
Up in the air.
yeah. And so the pilot had to, what they would call auto-rotate, where they cut power to the blades and they're still turning, but would cause he could fly it kind of like an airplane in a way on the way down to land. So he instead of landing straight down, he kind of went to a skidding land. But the pilot did a very good job in We didn't have any casualties.
So he managed to land it.
Yes, he managed to land it without anybody getting hurt or badly injured.
That's impressive because I've heard helicopters are the most difficult to fly.
Yes. He was a warrant officer that's been working on it, had flown for many years, and he did an excellent job with it. But when you got the headset on and all of a sudden the helicopter starts shaking and he's saying Mayday, and
I bet your heart was
your
racing.
heart's racing and you don't know what to think, and on the way down. And
what were your thoughts?
I thought that was the day we were gonna die. But he done a good job, because before the blades had split, we had to raise up to 1,000 feet to get picked up by radar, because they had moved the fuel depot and they're not going to give you grid coordinates over the air for where the fuel depot was moved. So we had to get high enough to be picked up on radar and guided in when our blade split. So we was way up there.
Oh my goodness. How many of you were in the helicopter?
There was the pilot, co-pilot, and then there was 3 others of us that were working as gunners.
Wow. I can't imagine how scary that would be. Did you send a special letter out that day to anyone?
No, not really, but
Or just go eat a big meal and be thankful you can?
yeah, pretty much.
Oh, so during your time in Saudi, did you have any guys that you just got really close with, that we really bonded with?
Yeah, had a bunch of, we were pretty, our motor pool area, we was a pretty close group. Like, we had put up a little sign calling our little motor pool area a town name, and they nicknamed our little town Shakaraz. And then one of the guys that got hurt one day, and we built doors for our tents. So we had put a painting on the side of it, Betty Ford's burn clinic, because one of the guys in that tent got burnt, so we put Betty Ford's burn clinic on the side of it for him. And we was pretty close group of guys that we pretty much do anything for any of us.
Did you all go from Fort Hood?
Yes.
Okay, so you knew each other
Yes.
prior and then got really close while you were deployed.
Yeah, because you were living, sleeping, and everything together, so.
Have you stayed in contact with those guys?
I lost contact with them, and I tried doing a online search to find out anything, and I haven't been able to find anything so far, because evidently the K Company, 158th Aviation, doesn't exist no more in Fort Hood, Texas. So I don't know, because I try to do an online search and it don't come up.
When you search their names, you can't find anybody?
Through the traumas I've been through, I've lost the knowledge of a lot of them's names, and which I'm bad with names anyhow, but I even have trouble recognizing some of the guys that I went to school with. We were sitting there talking with one of them, and Carrie was saying, he was in your class. I didn't recognize him one bit, or even his name I couldn't recognize.
It's very interesting how trauma works on the brain.
So there's been a whole lot of things been blocked out where I just can't remember.
Well, so when you left Saudi, then was that towards the end of your Army
Yes,
career?
it was towards the end, but when we got back to Fort Hood, Texas, they needed a volunteer for another thing, and I was always volunteering for different things, and so I volunteered to help out with the Special Olympics. And that's one of the things I volunteered for. I came and told my CO, I said, anytime this comes up, just put my name on it, just automatically. Because the kids and the people in there would just touch your heart. But I always kind of even through school, I always tried to help the underdog. And I guess that's how I got involved with, Carrie was in the rescue business, and pretty much all my life I've done helping someone that can't help themselves. Even when I got out of the military, I stayed working with Special Olympics. And then I also worked with autistic children. Even had gotten training with doing how to do a feeding tube, and then also doing one of them had a thing for trachea, and where I have to move it, clean it, and put it in, but you only got so many seconds to do it, because in a child they don't have a stoma tube, so you have to pull it, clean it, put it back in right away, or it'll close up.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And so you got to be quick. And then he was also tube fed, so I had to work on that. And then I worked on teaching him how to walk, because he couldn't walk. And just did it part-time. And then his other adopted brother traveled all over the United States with me. And I didn't have my own children in the sense, other than a stepdaughter, my prior wife, but had, I always called it the grandparent scene. You take care of everybody else's kids, spoil and rotten, and then give them back when they get on your nerves. But, so he'd done a lot with that and traveled all over the place with me. And he even come up here and my dad was teaching him how to drive a tractor and doing all sorts of things. So I always just kind of liked helping people that were not able to do a lot on their own.
Are you still in contact with him?
Yes.
That's good. So when you decided to leave the Army, what were the circumstances? Did you just feel like you'd had enough, or? Well,
we couldn't make rank, and so I would have stayed in and retired. But when you can't make rank in your MOS that you're in.
And there wasn't an option to cross-train?
Well, all of them that I was already cross-trained in, I was in that same boat, but went into that same area I was already in.
Okay, so then did you return to Iowa at that point?
No, I moved to North Carolina, and worked as in environmental cleanup.
So, natural disasters or like corporate disasters? What kind of?
All of it. I did hurricane cleanup, dealing with where fuel and things were released, dealt with pipeline ruptures. I dealt with overturned trucks, and one was a truck that had fertilizer, and then the diesel fuel run out and mixed with the fertilizer, so it's a bomb. And so it's a pretty bad situation. And we did that, and I told the crew, I said, before we went in, we had to take everything off that was metal, anything on you, that phones, rings, belts, everything off before we went in. And I told the guys, I said, you prayed up before we went in, and the news helicopters were flying so close that the transformer blew up right beside us while we're pulling the batteries out of the truck. Luckily nobody panicked, but I think I got myself into doing the environmental cleanup because of being stuck in so much of the hazards beforehand Guess it was kind of like a drug. It kept your...
You became an adrenaline junkie for
Yeah.
that? How long did you do that?
I did that for 25 years.
Oh, quite a while. So when
Yeah.
did you retire from that career then, or?
No, they didn't. They didn't do that on that. Did 20 years at one company and got a 20-year watch, and that was it. And then one of the other companies I had worked for, they were just going downhill before I went to the other one. And then I moved back to Iowa, which it's not in the area. Plus, with my body being broken down, my knees and joints, that I couldn't keep doing that kind of career anyhow. So I went into hog building maintenance.
What year was this then?
I moved back to Iowa in 2017.
Okay, so 2 years ago. So you've been back around 2 years.
Yeah. It been May of 2017. Me and Carrie got talking online, and
Carrie comes back in the picture again.
yes,
So, but at that point, it had been how many years since you'd last spoken with her?
we was figuring it 34 years.
34 years without contact. And then who found who online?
We kind of found each other. I was down in the dumps. Actually, I was thinking about committing suicide. And I was just got on Facebook. I was gonna tell people bye, and then I was going out behind the shed, and me and Carrie got talking, and kind of that thought left my mind.
And maybe there was something to live for after all.
Yep.
Well, I'm really glad that you reconnected with Carrie.
Yeah, so am I. Because Carrie was going to some of the stuff herself where she was thinking about internet herself. So the good Lord kind of put us in each other's path again.
Very timely.
Mm-hmm.
And very purposeful, because what you guys
Yes.
are doing is amazing.
And then with the Lucky Star Rescue, we like to, it does a lot, what helps me with the PTSD with the horses, because horses are very sensitive animals. And so we have some veterans that have come out already to work with the horses and helps them on their PTSD, and we just like to get the word out where there's more when they need the help. It's better to get the help than take the alternative.
Right. So if we go back a little bit, when did you realize you had PTSD?
Oh, I always, the nightmares and stuff like that, but through the military training, you just suck it up and go through it. You don't ask for help. It took getting back here and getting with Carrie, and we went and tried to get some help because I had some anger issues and stuff like that where you just feel overwhelmed, so I went and started getting help, and because I was always afraid that you get help, they're going to put you on some medicine where you feel like a zombie, not a human being. And I didn't want to be on a flat line where I didn't have no highs, no lows, or where I didn't feel like a human being.
Right. So prior to coming back to Iowa, you weren't service connected at that point?
Well, I was with my knees, but that was it.
Okay. So then you were able to, did you go through the process of service connecting for PTSD then?
Yes.
Have you been approved, or is it?
Yes.
Good.
They put me down as 20% for my PTSD, and they got me 30% on my knees.
Okay.
But a lot of I've got arthritis in pretty much every joint in my body, and they say it's hereditary, but nobody in my family has got that problem.
And the military is notorious for
And-
causing arthritis.
So they're sitting there saying that it's not service connected, but nobody in my family's got that problem, so it came from someplace.
Are you working on appealing that?
Not at the moment, I'm not, but because I asked them about they call it the Desert Shield syndrome, but they said that's for something that they can't find out why. But they're not even searching why I got the problems I've got, being they just say it's arthritis, and we know why you got arthritis. So they're saying it's not part of it. But part of the stuff that they give us, and we're finding more and more information out all the time, the shots and everything that they give us to going over there is probably causing half of the problems.
Right, and that's not something they readily admit. Yeah. So, we'll get back to the rescue now. So you moved to Iowa. Carrie's already running the rescue, correct?
Yes.
And so then you come and you start working with her, and you are her knight in shining armor, building barns.
Yeah, trying to help do whatever I can and help for the horses and the rescue itself, but it just falls right into what I was doing beforehand, and I was always trying to help what couldn't help themselves, and a lot of these horses have been mistreated, and you got to get the horse to rebond with somebody, and some of them are hard. Some of them are, a lot of them we've had are easy to bond with a woman, but are extremely hard to bond with a man. Chances are it was a man that was mistreating them. And so you're already starting from behind, but we've been able to pretty much on all of them get a good relationship with the horse that had been abused and get them to a point where they were trusting.
At what point did you guys come up with the idea to focus on veterans at the rescue?
When I was getting help for my PTSD with the horses itself, so we decided that, hey, it works, let's spread it out.
So on your own, you started to realize, wow, like this is really helping my PTSD.
Because I go out in the pasture or I'd be feeling bad and the horses know. I'd be walking out in the pasture, and even sometimes they just don't want to get caught. But when they feel that you're down, one day I had one horse's head in my chest and one over my shoulder and one over my other shoulder. All because I was down and out, and they wanted to comfort me.
That's really neat.
So they know.
They're very insightful. That's really neat. So do you want to explain what kind of, just to give viewers an opportunity to know, let's say a veteran calls your rescue and says, I heard you work with veterans, what do you guys do?
I'd tell them first that they need to come in and talk about it, and we've got some paperwork that we do just for the rescue's sake, and it's pretty much they could work on brushing the horse and working that way first. You work up, and horses don't tattle on you. So if you want to sit there and brush a horse and talk to a horse, if it's helping you, not think about the alternatives, that's what we're trying to accomplish.
Is this something that veterans have to pay for, or how do you get your funding?
We get our funding through, a lot of it comes out of what my check is, which I'm on disability now, Social Security disability, and my VA disability. But which a lot of it goes into it, but people also fund, donate hay. We've had Perina donated 40 bags of grain, and so we get donations here and there. We're a 501c3 nonprofit, so a lot of what goes in donations goes in for the horses, and then a horse gets adopted out, the money gets flipped right back into grain. Like one guy, he wanted to get a horse, but he didn't want to pay cash, so he paid for it in hay.
The D&B.
And then we also have bed and breakfast that we run out of the house, 2 bedrooms, which helps out towards the paying for the feed and everything also.
Very good. So you guys will be home, and then people will rent a room.
Yes.
And they'll come out and stay. Then do you also welcome them to spend time with the horses while they're staying?
If they're interested in doing so, they're welcome. We've had several that's come out and went around and wanted to pet the horses, and got kittens out there, cats, and love the cats. And we've had a lot of people that stay because we allow dogs and pets with a deposit, but our dogs seem to get along real well with other dogs, so we've had real good opportunities with that. And a lot of people with like the windmills have stayed here. We've had people from Germany stayed here. We've had people from Iceland and Switzerland, I think. So we've had people all over, but Europe, bed and breakfast is the norm. United States isn't quite as much now, but Europe, it's the normal. And
I imagine that's been a really neat experience for you guys.
Just, to see people, which me being already traveled over there, we get a lot to talk about and talking with them on things. But Carrie, she traveled the United States pretty much everywhere, but not abroad. And then I've pretty much traveled all abroad quite a bit. So
you have a mixture. You guys each have your area of the world that you've explored. We discussed your dad a little bit earlier. As time went on, were you and your dad able to resolve things?
Yes. We got talking and found out that he was raised by his dad that the way to punish on something is the belt. And he just did the same that he was raised by his dad, which a lot of children end up that same way. They just follow suit of what they was taught as a kid instead of trying to avoid, and which I think is part of the reason why I never had children of my own, is because I was afraid I was going to follow suit in the same route. So by messing with other people's kids, I didn't have to do the disciplinary area, so I was avoiding that area. So I think that's a lot of reason why I didn't have my own children, is because I was afraid I was going to follow suit in the same route.
That's understandable. Well, Rodney, can you think of anything that we didn't cover during your interview?
No, not offhand.
Any last thoughts or, actually I do have a question. What advice would you give to future generations?
One is be yourself. Don't fall into peer pressure, and allow yourself to have compassion for another person and for others, because I believe in the Bible, and as a Christian, I believe that one of the best commandments that we got was to love, and too many people judge versus love. And we need to touch and work with each other.
Very good. All right. Thank you so much for this interview, Rodney. This concludes our interview with Rodney Reinertson. Thank you for your time today, and thank you for your military service.
Thank you.